The Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek will seek to push the Murray Darling Basin Plan past the 2024 deadline to fulfil an election commitment, which will see 450 gigalitres of water fed back into the basin. She says she's concerned Labor's significantly behind on its commitment to complete the project on time, blaming mainly the coalition because of what Labor inherited. Tanya Plibersek says she's sought advice from the Basin Authority Chair Angus Houston on how to navigate an extremely difficult deadline. The opposition warns 450 gigalitres will not fix the basin's problems and hurt agriculture.
The 450 gigalitres will not keep the Murray mouth open. You only have to look at what happened with nature, with the amount of water that's flooded through there in recent months and the past year. It took an enormous amount of water to stop dredging in the Murray mouth. We've got to be scientific about how we approach this.
For more on this, I'm joined by Green Senator and Environment Water Spokesperson Sarah Hanson-Young. Thank you very much for your time. What do you make of what the Minister's saying on
Tom.
this? We had this report last year that Labor inherited a plan way behind schedule. So was this delay inevitable?
Well, it has been a wasted decade of inaction, of stalling, of sabotage. And, here we are a decade later, $13 billion spent and still a river system that's in crisis because people have gamed the system. Big corporate irrigators have wound back reforms. They've stood over the top of governments. And now we have, sadly and very, very disappointingly, this move from the Labor Minister, Tanya Plibersek, putting up the white flag on the Murray Darling Basin Plan. It is just heartbreaking. And I must say, South Australians are feeling pretty frustrated and angry today, disappointed that what was an election promise, that the Murray Darling Basin Plan would be delivered in time and in full, including that 450 gigalitres, now looks as though it was never meant to be promised in the first place. It's a disgrace, actually, Tom, and we need to make sure that we're not just pushing these deadlines out into the too hard basket, into the never, never, or beyond into the next election. We need that 450 gigalitres delivered, bought back, delivered to South Australia before the next election.
So the key line you said there, bought back. Given the sort of lack of progress that Labor inherited on this, the only option would be big buybacks, much bigger than expected. Isn't this due process to not unnecessarily hurt agriculture and the communities relying on it, to get a bit more time, see what is possible through efficiencies that we can hope don't really hurt anyone, and then figure out at the end what buyback is needed?
Well, what we've seen is that the efficiency process has been a total sham. And that's what's held this process up right from the beginning. 450 gigalitres was meant to be delivered. Only 4 gigalitres at that 450, that's 4, has been delivered, and through those types of efficiency measures. I mean, it's bollocks. It's a sham. It won't work going forward, and we need to do what the science and the economics has always advised we should do, and that is to get in there to buy the water back so that there are environmental flows guaranteed for the river. Because regardless of what end of the river system you live on, if the river doesn't have enough water to survive, there are no jobs. There are no jobs on a dead river, and whether you live down here in South Australia or midway up in New South Wales or Victoria, the river, if you rely on it, you need it to survive. You need it to be flowing.
I want to ask you about the voice in particular, what you make of Labor's carriage of it. Have Labor presented the case well, given the dwindling support we've seen for the Indigenous voice to Parliament?
Well, this is the really crucial few months now to make sure we do get support for the voice over the line, that this referendum is successful. I think about how we're all going to feel on the day after the referendum if it doesn't pass, Tom. It would be a disgrace. It is time, well over time, for Australians to recognise First Nations people in our Constitution, to put in place a proper voice so that First Nations people can have an opportunity to have a say over the issues that impact their lives. And no one can argue that the status quo is working, that it's okay. The gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians is widening. It's getting worse. We can't just keep on business as usual. We have to change tack. And this referendum gives us an opportunity to do that. And I just want to say, there can be no fence sitters in this debate going forward. You're either a yes or you're a no. And if you believe in fairness, if you believe in reconciliation, if you believe that Indigenous Australians deserve better and to be on the right side of history, then you've got to put your hand up, campaign for yes, vote yes, because if you don't, you're on the side of the nasties. That's Peter Dutton and Pauline Hanson, who say the status quo is A-OK, and it's clearly not.
Well, there'd be plenty of people that might vote no that might not necessarily support Peter Dutton and Pauline Hanson. You said if it doesn't pass, it would be a disgrace. Who would be disgraced in that circumstance? All the voters that voted no?
I think it would be a shame on Australia internationally if we didn't get this referendum up. We are a modern country. It is 2023. It is time we right the wrongs of the past. And we would be an international pariah, Tom, if we don't get this referendum up. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to set the record straight, to have First Nations people given the respect and recognition they deserve in our Constitution, an opportunity to have a say over their lives, and the opportunity for non-Indigenous Australians to help correct the wrongs of the past. We want to be a nation and a country that we are proud of, that is modern, that can move towards a better future where we close those gaps between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians. And this is the opportunity to do it. If we don't get this over the line, it will be on all of us for not trying hard enough.
What about when you talk about, if we wake up and it's a no, what the feeling will be? Could there be at that point a regret that the question was not split, because there seems very strong support for constitutional recognition? That in that situation you talk about, that could have passed, and even if the other question didn't pass, that could have been, you could have a voice legislated in Parliament and work towards another referendum. Could it be a shame that that's
I don't
not
get
split?
sucked into. I'm not going to get sucked in. I haven't been sucked into any of the trickery of the no campaign. Doesn't matter what the question was going to be, Tom. They would have come up with an excuse for why it wasn't good enough. There are people in this country who don't want this referendum to pass, and the rest of us have to stand up, stand strong, stand tall, and make sure Australia that is better than this, that can be better than this, delivers better.
But it's a fair question to ask, isn't it, when you've got two changes being made, that could they have been two separate questions, particularly given one has a lot more support?
Look, I honestly, Tom, the trickery of the no campaign, that they want to pull the wool over the eyes of the Australian people and somehow pretend that this isn't the moment to take this chance to start addressing the wrongs of the past. That is the nastiness of Peter Dutton and Pauline Hanson. And I must say, here in South Australia, where everywhere I go, South Australians raise this issue with me. They want to see the referendum supported, and they don't want to see the nasty party succeed. And when they say the nasty party, voters over and over again say to me, that is all they see from Peter Dutton. He's here in Adelaide today, and I must say, he should pack his bags, go home. We don't want the likes of the nasty party whipping up hate in our state.
Got to leave it there. Senator, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.